We will talk about 2 or 3 parts of vocational education. The first one will be where in our educational system do we provide vocational education. So this is a graphic of the United States educational system. So here on this side, we have the grade levels. So pre-K, pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, grade 12. This is the secondary system. Students get to grade 12 and get the high school diploma. And then this part is the post-secondary or college and university system. And so, and then this is the ages approximate of the students. So many students start kindergarten at age 5 and they graduate from high school about 17 years old, 17 or 18. So most of the vocational education in the United States, we provide in the last 2 years of high school, grades 11, grades 12. And then we have a system of 2-year colleges. They are technical colleges and we call them community colleges. So students can get basic vocational education here. And if they want to continue their vocational education, they can go to a 2-year college. This tuition is free. This tuition has a cost the students must pay to go. So this is where the ages and the grade levels, grades 11 and 12 of secondary school, and then 2 years after secondary school for vocational training. Oops, sorry. So, first of all, we have comprehensive high schools. So, comprehensive high schools. These are usually, they have grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. And the vocational programs are in grades 11 and 12. A comprehensive high school means that every student can get an education. So if you want to go to the university, we provide you with university preparation. If you are a student who wants vocational education, the comprehensive high school will provide some vocational education. If you are a special education student and you need special help, maybe you are in a wheelchair, or maybe you have a hearing problem or a vision problem, we will provide you with help to get your education. So comprehensive high school means we serve every student in their dreams. So in the United States, we have about 17,000 public comprehensive high schools. Public means supported by the government, by the state. Private comprehensive high schools, the students pay tuition, or the parents pay tuition. Okay, so this is one place where we can find vocational education. Another place is in vocational career centers. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know the order of the presentation. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So one issue with the comprehensive high school is they can only offer a very small number of vocational courses. So in the United States, we have area career center or area vocational school. And the students in these high schools, they can choose in grade 11 and grade 12, they can leave the high school and go to the career center. And the career center maybe has 30 or 40 different vocational programs. So many, many more choices for the students. It is also much more cost effective because we can put all the vocational programs in one building, in one space. And the students, they get their high school diploma still from the comprehensive high school, but then they also can get vocational training from the career center. So many years ago, I was a principal at the career center, and we had 16 high schools where students can choose to go to our career center for vocational training, because maybe at their high school they only have one vocational course. And this high school maybe only has 2 vocational courses. Here we have 30 or 40, so many more choices for the students. So this is a very common way to offer courses to grades 11 and 12 in high school. Another place that we offer vocational training is in Job Corps centers. In the United States, we have some issue with some students who drop out of high school. They do not finish high school. They do not get a high school diploma. And so they maybe are 17 or 18 or 19 years old. No high school diploma. No vocational skills. No job. No future. So the government created Job Corps centers. It's sort of like a second chance. So the students, maybe the student is 19 years old and he says, I need to start over because I made a mistake. So they can go to the Job Corps center and they can get a high school diploma and they can get some vocational training and they can start their life again and make a better choice the second time. So I mentioned before that community colleges, technical colleges, many students attend these educational schools. They get a 2-year degree, an associate degree. Associate degree is one step below bachelor's degree. So we also have many adults who go to the technical college maybe in the evening or on the weekend or online to get new skills, maybe get a promotion in their work or a salary increase. So the community college and the technical college, they are very flexible in how they offer courses. So many adults take courses, as well as many students right from high school go to the community college. The tuition is not very expensive. Another place that we offer vocational training is in our prisons, because it again is a second chance, because some of those people, they will get out of prison and they need an education. They need some skills. So while they are in prison, they can go back to school and get a high school diploma and get vocational training. So when they get out of prison, they maybe can find a job, and then they don't go back to prison. In the United States, we also have apprenticeship, much like apprenticeship programs in Germany and Switzerland and Austria and many European countries, where the students are assigned to a master, what we call a journeyman, and they study under that person for 2 years or 3 years as an apprentice. So we do have this apprentice opportunity in the United States. Not very popular, but it is still, you can still find it in bigger cities. Okay, so, maybe we talk about challenges. Sorry, I have to skip some slides. Okay, good. That's good. Yeah, right there. Okay, so we can talk for a minute about some challenges and issues in our vocational education system, and also some things that we have done to improve our vocational system in the United States. So, I think we have 4 issues in our vocational programs in the United States. One is the public perception or the public view of vocational education sometimes is very negative. Secondly, we have some curriculum problems, issues, and we will talk about that. Funding, how to pay for vocational education. And then we also have some issues with vocational education teachers. So let's talk about each one. So first, the public perception. In the United States, for many, many years, vocational education is seen as second-class education. Vocational education is where we put the students who do not behave, or maybe they are not smart. So many people in the U.S., they say it is second-class education. It's not true, not today, but still, some people still have this old view. Many parents think the only way my child will be a success is to go to the university and get a bachelor's degree or master's degree. Also not true, but still, some parents believe this. And then, until very recently, the government does not pay much attention to vocational education, especially research. How to find out about what works in vocational education. What information do we have about the students who complete vocational education programs? Very little research was being done on vocational education. So the public view of vocational education, maybe up until about the year 2000, somewhat very negative. Okay, so keep that in your mind. Secondly, for many years, when I was in high school, vocational education had one purpose: entry-level job. So students wanted to leave a vocational program and get a job. Now, we still have students who want to do that, but we have many vocational students who go to a 2-year college. We have many students who go from a vocational program in high school to the university. We have many students who go from a vocational program to the military. The U.S. military does a lot of vocational training. We have many adults who go back to school in the evening or on the weekend to get some more training to get a job, a better job, or salary increase or promotion. we have many people who need a second chance, who maybe make a mistake early in their life, and then we want to give them an opportunity to make a change. So we are trying to do many different things with our vocational programs. Whereas in the past, this was the only purpose. So that creates another problem. How to pay for everything. Vocational education is expensive to offer. We require a lot of equipment, a lot of materials, a lot of space for machines and equipment. In the United States, our schools are funded by some combination of taxes. So in most of the states, the money for the schools comes from, about 45% comes from state taxes. And those would be taxes that people would pay on, if they go to the store and they buy a coat, they pay tax. If they buy a car, they pay a tax. So the state taxes pay for about 45% of the school budget. About 45% of the school budget comes from local taxes. So if you live in a town or a city and you own property, you own a house, a home, you pay taxes on the value of that home. So in my town, I own a house, and every year I get a note from the government saying, here is your tax bill, pay your tax bill. And it will show me about almost all of my tax money goes to pay for the schools. A small amount goes to pay for the fire department and the police department, but almost all of it goes to pay for the schools. The United States government does not put much funding into the school districts. Most of it is at the state level and the local level. And the government federal level for vocational education has not increased for many years. Only just this year, in 2019, very small increase from the United States government for vocational education. So every one of the states, 50 states, they fund vocational education at different levels. Because many people in the U.S., they do not like to pay taxes. So they say, you know, I don't want to pay any more taxes, so the school must maybe do without some things because people don't want to pay the taxes. So in some states, we have some differences in the quality of our vocational education. In my state, in Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and Oklahoma, those three states for many, many years have been very high quality vocational education because the people in those states are willing to pay more taxes for better schools. So the funding can be difficult. And then at the two-year college, most of the funding comes from the students who pay tuition, or the parents. Parents pay tuition. And then the state gives some money to the community colleges and the technical college. So the funding of vocational education can be a challenge. And I have always said you cannot do high quality vocational education on a low budget. It just does not work. So another issue we have is vocational education teachers. Overall in the United States, teaching is not a well-paid occupation. Also, it does not have the highest status in society. So many parents don't want their child to be a teacher, and many students, they want to be a doctor or a lawyer. Many do not want to be a teacher. So that's a challenge to find young people who want to be a vocational teacher, or even just a teacher of any subject, math or science or English or any subject. We bring many of our vocational teachers from the companies. So the schools, they try to recruit teachers from the companies. And that can be a challenge because the wage and the salary is different. The company can pay more than the school. So it can be difficult. And also sometimes what happens is the company, the teacher will come from the company, and maybe we will train them at my university, and then maybe 1 or 2 years later, the company will call them, the teacher, and say, please come back. We will increase your salary even more. And so now the teacher leaves and the school has to start over again. This happens a lot. Another issue we have for our vocational teachers is how to keep their technical skills high level when they are in the school all day with students. So many of our vocational teachers, they work in the summer. They go back to a company and work in the summertime. Or they own their own business and they do some work on their free time to try to keep their skills up. But it can be a challenge to keep the skill level high. And then many universities in my country, they focus on math teachers and science and special education and early childhood education, not so much on vocational teacher training. So many of the university programs are declining in the number. So not so many universities to provide the training. So we have some issues with teachers. I will say that for those people who stay in teaching, usually if they stay for 30 years, they get a full retirement with very good benefits from the retirement system. So maybe the salary is not so good while you're teaching, but when you retire, the salary is very good for being retired. Many teachers, especially those that teach in a public school, not private, but public school, they belong to a union, a workers' union, teachers' union. And then the teachers' union negotiates the salary with the manager of the school. So in the U.S., there is not one salary scale. There are thousands, because every school district negotiates their own salary scale. So there's no standard government scale, salary scale. That can be good if you work in a wealthy school district, because your salary will be more money. If you work in a poor school district, maybe not so good. That can be, good thing or bad thing, depending on where you work. So we have made some very good improvements, though. And I think some of these improvements were driven by, one, in the 1990s, right before the 2000s, many officials in the government and schools said, the economy is global. The United States competes with companies and organizations from China, Japan, Germany, Great Britain, all over the world. And our educational system maybe is not so good, especially our vocational education system. We also know that technology changes. When I first started teaching many years ago, this did not exist. That tells you how old I am. But technology changes every day, and we need more educated workers in the workplace. In the United States, we also have a large need for skilled labor, people to fix our cars, to build our bridges, to repair our houses. It's very difficult to find a good carpenter or a good auto mechanic. It's very difficult, and it's expensive. Many people are looking at the schools now and saying, I pay taxes. I want to make sure the school is doing a good job. So there's increased accountability. They want to know, are you spending my tax money wisely? And then last, our population in the United States is very diverse. We have people from many different countries who come to the U.S. to try to make a new life. And they bring their children. And their children end up in our schools. And their first language is not English. It might be Spanish, or it might be, they might be from Somalia or Nepal or some other country. And so it creates challenges for our schools to be able to teach these students when their English skill is not so good. Puts a lot of stress on the teacher. So we know all these things are happening, so we needed to make some changes. So the first thing that we did, in 1998, we said the word vocational education has so many negative views. Let's change the name to career and technical education. Because what we are really doing with our programs is we are preparing students for careers in technical fields. Now, if we just change the name and do nothing else, it doesn't make a difference. So, one thing we did was we asked businesses and companies to be more involved with our schools and provide what we call work-based learning, WBL, work-based learning, so more students in high school can do internships and can do what we call job shadowing. Just go to the workplace and observe to know what the workplace requires of students. So we have many more big companies who are involved. Ford and General Motors and Microsoft, and then also many, many, many small companies who in years before, when I was in high school, we never had this kind of involvement by the companies. So now we have many companies, and I visited a school yesterday that has a cooperation with BMW. That's very good for the students to have this involvement of the companies. So we have really increased our involvement. We have made better connections between high school vocational education and post-secondary vocational education. So the two levels of schools talk to each other and work together, and many programs in vocational education, the students in high school, they earn high school credit to graduation, and they can also earn college credit at the same time. So when they graduate from high school, they actually have some college credit already completed. It is a way to get the student to go on for their education. So we have many of these, what we call articulation agreements, where if the student completes the high school program, they are accepted into the community college or the technical college, and they are given some credits toward the associate degree before they even start the program. We have an association for career and technical education research, mostly people like me, university professors, that conduct research on the outcomes of vocational education and try to find best practices and other models to be successful. The United States Department of Education, for many years, did not pay any attention to vocational education. Now they have money set aside specifically for research on vocational education. And there's an Institute of Educational Sciences who now awards grant monies to researchers. Another thing that we have done is, in the past, vocational education prepared students to go into the workplace and look at one job, prepare you for one job. Now what we try to do is, instead of a very narrow preparation, it's more broad. And we have improved the academics. Many of our vocational students had very poor math skills, very poor reading skills, or writing skills. And so we have tried to improve those. And we also try to show the students the connections. For example, when I was in high school, I took geometry. And I remember asking the teacher, when will I use the Pythagorean theorem? Do you remember what that is? A squared plus B squared equals C squared in a triangle. Yeah. I said, when will I use that? She did not know. And I said, why do I have to learn it? If I will never use it, and you can't tell me why do I have to learn it? Many American students, they ask that question about not just geometry, but other subjects. Why do I have to learn this? So what we have tried to do with our vocational programs is make the connections so the students see the value in learning mathematics or physics or biology. So I know now that you can use the Pythagorean theorem to calculate the slope on a roof. You can use the Pythagorean theorem to calculate how electrical current goes through a circuit. In high school, I did not know that, but I know it now. So we have tried to strengthen the academics of our vocational students. We still have these issues, though, that many schools only focus on math and science and English, and they don't give students a lot of choices for vocational education unless they go to the Career Center. Many parents still believe the 4-year degree is the only way to make a success. And I will say, the example I give, if you go into a vocational program and in auto mechanics, and you become an auto mechanic for Toyota or Volvo or Nissan or Ford, if you work hard, you can make more money than a university professor. So the parents who believe the only way to be a success is a 4-year degree is not correct. We know, again, vocational education is expensive, and some schools cannot always offer high quality. We still would like to have more companies involved, and we still have this issue with vocational teachers because the companies, and especially now, the economy in the United States is very good. So the salaries for a lot of people with skilled training, the salaries are very good, and the schools cannot compete to take the people from the companies and make them a teacher. So I want to talk just a minute about vocational research and also about maybe graduate programs. First of all, in the United States, there are 4 universities that have the best vocational teacher preparation, and also the best PhD programs. I'm very fortunate. My university is number one. Ohio State University is number one. Pennsylvania State, and then the University of Georgia, and Virginia Tech. All of these universities have a long history of preparing teachers for vocational education and also for doing research. So if anytime you are ever interested in the best programs in the U.S., these are the 4 best. There are different publications. There are 2 types for vocational education. One is, these are the 2 most high-quality research journals. The Career Technical Education Research and then the Journal of Career and Technical Education. This journal is published by this group, and this is the research group I mentioned, the Association for Career and Technical Education Research, mostly university professors. So this group publishes this journal. Then we have other journals that are more for teachers, so more practical information, to give them information about things like instructional practices, and classroom management, and laboratory management. So I have written some articles for these 2, and then also for these 2. If you're interested in a PhD program, there are things that are important. One of them is the grade point average. And you have to submit transcripts from your university to the U.S. university. There is a graduate record exam, the GRE, that is required. Although our program just this year, we dropped that requirement. But some other programs still require what we call the GRE, graduate record exam. Generally, they require 2 or 3 letters of recommendation from your faculty to talk about your abilities to pursue graduate education. And then we ask for what we call a writing sample or a statement of intent, which asks one question. Why do you want to do this? Because it's hard work. So why do you want to do it, and what will you do with the PhD when you're finished? So some very simple questions, but we want to know why you want to do this. And then for international students, you apply 1 year ahead because of all the paperwork and the visa and all that. Our university requires a year in advance to apply. Some topics of research interest now in the United States. Enrollment. We have seen big increases in enrollment in vocational education programs. More students are interested in vocational education because many of the jobs they can get pay a very good salary, better salaries than students with a 4-year university degree. So we want to find out who is taking vocational courses. Is it more females? Is it more males? Is it more African American students? What is the makeup, the demographics of vocational education students? What are some of the best practices, the instructional practices for vocational education? How do we measure success? One of the measuring sticks for vocational education is, do the graduates get a job? What is the salary of the graduate? Do they go on for more education? So there are different outcomes, different things we look for. Teacher education in vocational education. What things work to recruit teachers? what things work to keep them in teaching and not going back to the company. So there are some difficulties, though, with conducting research in the United States. One of the big things is our laws make it very difficult for someone like me to go into a school and conduct research on students that are under 18, which is most of the students in high school. I have to get permission from the school. I have to get permission from the parents. I have to get all written and signed. So from the school, from the parent, from the student, and from my university. So I have to get written permission. And if you want to, say you want to conduct research on an entire school of 1,000 students, you have to get 1,000 written permissions from the parents, 1,000 written permissions from the students, and then 1 permission from the university and from the school. It takes a long time to get those permissions. So that's a big difficulty. If you're familiar with research, and you know experimental research, where you assign some students to some treatment, and then other students don't get the treatment, you can't do that in the United States with students, because the law says you cannot take this group of students and just give them a treatment and then give this other group no treatment. It's not allowed. We have 50 different states. So some states may even have more rules about vocational or about research in a school. Good research takes money. Sometimes it's difficult to get research or get funding to do research. And then many universities are more interested in math education, reading education, special education, educational leadership, which is school principals. And so for years, vocational education has not been a priority. But it is changing, but still can be a difficulty to get funding for some research in vocational education. So every year I try to take some visiting scholar faculty from China, either from a university or from a government. And this year I have a faculty member from Tianjin, and he translated one of my articles, I think, that's what it says, right? Okay. And published it in this journal for me. So, I don't know, now do we have time or not? Because you have classes?